Dune Part 3 leaks are exploding online, and the new movie is shaping up to be the most intense chapter Denis Villeneuve has ever made. According to multiple insider reports, this film won't just continue the story, and it completely changes the tone, the scale, and the future of the entire franchise. Leaks say Dune 3 opens with zero slow buildup. The movie throws us straight into the aftermath of Paul's rise, and his power starts slipping faster than anyone expected. For the first time, Paul isn't the unstoppable figure fans saw in Part 2. He's targeted, outplayed, and pushed into choices that could destroy everything he built. Early storyboard leaks show massive desert battles, new factions entering Arrakis, and a political war that makes the last two movies look small. There are also rumors of a new villain with a brutal agenda tied directly to Paul's future and the collapse of the Empire. Another leak hints at a major character return and a shocking betrayal that hits before the halfway point of the film. If this leak is true, the twist will change how audiences view Paul forever. And visually, leaked production notes claim Villeneuve is aiming for the most epic desert sequences ever put on screen. Bigger worms, bigger battles, bigger consequences. Everything we're about to break down comes from the latest leaks, insider reports, and early production info, so stay with me. But before we dive into the first major leak, hit like and subscribe so you stay ahead of every update on Dune Part 3. The latest Dune Part 3 leaks are pointing to one brutal truth. Paul's future is about to be rewritten from the ground up. Everything fans expect from the next chapter is being flipped, reshaped, and pushed into darker territory. According to several insider breakdowns, Dune 3 doesn't continue Paul's rise. It deconstructs it. One leak claims the movie opens with Paul already facing the consequences of his empire. His authority is slipping, the tribes are losing unity, and the political structure he built is cracking faster than he can hold it together. Instead of showing Paul at his strongest, the leaks say the film starts with him already surrounded by pressure, doubt, and a level of instability that hasn't been seen before in the franchise. Early script notes that leaked online describe Paul entering Dune 3 in a state of internal conflict. He's carrying guilt from the holy war unleashed in his name. He's haunted by visions that no longer align with his path, and his prescience, the thing that once gave him control, becomes unreliable. Instead of seeing clear futures, Paul sees fragmented outcomes he can't interpret. This is where the real rewrite begins. He's no longer the character who can predict every move. Another leak mentions that Paul receives a new vision in the first act that contradicts everything he built his rule on. This vision reveals a future where his leadership does not end in triumph. It ends in collapse. It's said to be a moment that shakes him so deeply that it changes his entire arc for the rest of the film. This is a Paul who hesitates, who questions, who doubts the very destiny people expect him to embrace. Insiders also suggest that Part 3 will show the consequences of the choices Paul made in Part 2 far more violently. The political world around him tightens. The Fremen are divided. The Imperium prepares for a counterstrike. Rivals study his weaknesses. And all of this creates a version of Paul who is fighting on too many fronts, externally and internally. One leak goes as far as calling this movie the dismantling of the myth. Instead of portraying Paul as the flawless leader, Dune 3 reportedly exposes the human behind the legend. We see him not as the chosen one, but as someone who realizes the cost of being chosen. The Dune Part 3 storyboard leaks shocked everyone because they revealed something fans didn't expect this early in the film: a full-scale war sequence happening in the first act. According to insiders who saw the early visuals, this isn't a small clash or a setup battle. It's a massive, all-out assault that instantly shows how unstable Paul's rule has become. The leaked frames describe an attack striking deep inside Fremen territory, targeting one of Paul's strongest military strongholds. What makes this scene even more surprising is that the offensive doesn't come from a single enemy. The leak claims it's a coordinated multi-front strike, carried out by forces connected to the remnants of the Imperium, off-world allies, and even rebel elements among the Fremen themselves. One of the storyboard panels shows an enormous sandstorm swallowing the horizon while enemy ships descend through the sky. Another leak mentions mobile ground units and heavy artillery tech not seen in the first two movies. These visuals suggest the enemy is far more prepared, more advanced, and more organized than anyone expected. The most shocking part of the leak is the scale of the confrontation. The storyboards show thousands of fighters across the dunes, with explosions lighting up the desert and sandworms reacting violently to the chaos. Insiders describe this as Denis Villeneuve's biggest war shot yet, meaning it may surpass the battle scenes from Part 2 in in both scale and intensity. Another leak mentions a key moment during the attack. Paul is caught off guard. He expects the threat to come later in the film, but this assault hits so early that it destabilizes his entire war strategy. The leak claims Paul is forced into a defensive retreat, something we've never seen from him before. This shift immediately sets the tone for the rest of the movie. Paul is no longer the one controlling the battlefield. He's reacting, scrambling, adapting. There's also a leaked segment involving a massive sandworm eruption in the middle of the fight, triggered by weapon fire. The storyboard supposedly shows a worm bursting through enemy lines, swallowing entire groups of soldiers. But even this natural advantage isn't enough to secure a clean victory for Paul's forces. The leaks say the battle ends in stalemate at best, and possibly as a tactical defeat. This early war sequence is meant to do one thing: show that Paul's enemies aren't waiting. They're striking hard, fast, and with enough force to challenge his entire empire. It signals a new tone for Dune Part 3, a movie where Paul's power is constantly tested, and the desert becomes a battlefield of unpredictable consequences. If these leaks are true, the first act alone already delivers one of the biggest battles in the franchise. One of the most talked about Dune Part 3 leaks reveals a major shift that completely transforms the story. The Fremen themselves begin to turn on Paul, and according to insiders, this betrayal doesn't come from a single moment. It's the result of pressure, broken expectations, and growing divisions inside their society. The first reason comes from something the leaks describe as the cost of Paul's jihad. The Fremen expected liberation, stability, and a clear path to the future. Instead, what they got is an empire drowning in war, death, and political chaos. The holy war fought in Paul's name has spread across galaxies, and many Fremen begin questioning if this devastation was ever part of their true destiny. Some see Paul not as the savior, but as the one who unleashed destruction on a scale they never imagined. Another leak mentions that several Fremen tribes feel ignored and abandoned under Paul's leadership. They believe the Atreides vision of the future is drifting away from traditional Fremen values. According to insiders, Denis Villeneuve wants to show the tension between Paul the ruler and the Fremen people who never asked for an empire. This internal conflict slowly pushes certain tribes to rebel or ally with outside forces in secret. One of the most explosive leaks claims that a new Fremen leader rises, someone charismatic, angry, and deeply connected to the old ways of the desert. This leader challenges Paul's authority not with armies at first, but with ideology. The leaks describe this figure as a spark that ignites the cultural split, turning a portion of the Fremen against the idea of following a messiah who they now see as a symbol of endless war. Insiders say Chani's arc also plays a major role in this shift. Leaks suggest she becomes more vocal, more critical, and more protective of Fremen life than ever before. Her questioning of Paul's decisions encourages others to doubt him too. This adds personal tension that pushes Paul further into isolation, which only makes him appear weaker and more disconnected to his people. Another leak reveals that some Fremen blame Paul for the sudden increase in off-world invasions. They believe the attacks, raids, and growing danger would not exist if Paul had refused the mantle of emperor. This frustration evolves into anger, and that anger evolves into resistance. The storyboards from the first war sequence support this. Footage shows Fremen fighters joining enemy units. This is not a rumor. It appears in the leaked frames themselves. Some rebels even sabotage Paul's strategic positions during the early battles, proving that the fractures inside Fremen society are far deeper than anyone expected. What these leaks make clear is simple. Paul doesn't just face an external war in Dune Part 3, he faces a rebellion in his own home. His greatest allies become divided, his power base becomes unstable, and the people who once saw him as the Mahdi now look at him as the cause of their suffering. One of the most shocking leaks from Dune Part 3 involves a major twist in the prophecy that drives Paul's entire journey. According to insiders, this isn't a small plot adjustment. It completely flips how the audience understands Paul, his power, and the future of Arrakis. The leak claims that early in the film, Paul experiences a vision that directly contradicts everything he believed about his destiny. In previous films, Paul's prescience made him appear untouchable, able to foresee threats and manipulate outcomes. But in Part 3, the vision shows a future where his empire collapses, his allies betray him, and the Fremen turn against him. This forces Paul into decisions that could break or save the universe, and nothing in his previous experience can guide him. Insiders also described that the prophecy, as traditionally understood, is revealed to have been misinterpreted. Paul learns that some of the signs he followed were manipulated by enemies long before the events of the first two movies. This revelation shakes him to the core. It's no longer about fulfilling destiny. It's about questioning the very foundation of what he thought he knew. Another leak highlights a scene where Paul confronts key Fremen leaders about this twist. The storyboards reportedly show heated discussions, disbelief, and tension among the tribes, signaling that the prophecy's reinterpretation fractures the loyalty of his people. The Fremen aren't just confused. Some begin actively resisting him because their sacred visions no longer align with his actions. Additionally, the leak suggests that this prophecy twist sets the stage for the final conflict of the film. Paul's enemies, both internal and external, use this revelation to exploit cracks in his leadership. The result is a chain reaction. Battles intensify, alliances shift, and the desert itself becomes an unpredictable weapon in the fight for control. If true, this prophecy twist doesn't just alter Paul's journey, it redefines the entire narrative of Dune. It transforms Part 3 from a story of power and conquest into a story of uncertainty, betrayal, and survival, and it sets up consequences that will ripple far beyond the movie, leaving fans questioning everything they thought they knew about the Dune universe. In short, Paul is no longer the all-seeing Mahdi. He's a leader forced to navigate a future that might be entirely wrong, and every choice he makes could lead to catastrophe. And that's everything we know so far about Dune Part 3 from the latest leaks. From Paul's rewritten future, to the first massive war sequence, to the Fremen turning against him, and finally, the prophecy twist that changes everything. This movie promises to be darker, bigger, and far more intense than anything we've seen before. If these leaks are real, Denis Villeneuve isn't just continuing the story, he's completely reshaping it, pushing Paul to the edge, and delivering consequences that could redefine the entire Dune universe. So what do you think? Will Paul survive this chaos? Or is this the beginning of his ultimate downfall? Drop your theories in the comments because I want to hear what you think will happen. And don't forget, if you want the latest Dune Part 3 updates, leak breakdowns, and full analysis, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you're first to know when new info drops. The desert is dangerous, and the war has only just begun.